We know that it takes some effort to get here. We do our best to reward that effort with outstanding programming. I know tonight will be no exception. My name is Peter Tchaikovsky. I organize our public talks here, offered in conjunction with two exhibitions currently here at the Getty Museum. Overdrive, LA Constructs the Future, 1940 to 1990, curated by Wim de Wit, Chris Alexander, and Ronnie Singh. I think at least some of them are here tonight. Extraordinary exhibition open until July 21, and it's part of the Getty Initiative. Pacific Standard Time presents modern architecture in LA, and the video that you're looking at now is in that exhibition, along with extraordinary wealth of materials. So you'll want to see that. But more specifically, also In Focus, Ed Ruscha, open until September 29th, features photographs by Ed Ruscha, which were made as mostly in relation to his book projects, including 26 gasoline stations, some Los Angeles apartments, every building on the Sunset Strip, and Pacific Coast Highway. We'll be seeing and hearing much more about that tonight. And this exhibition was curated by Virginia Heckert and John Tain, and was made possible by a great acquisition made jointly by the J. Paul Getty Museum and the Getty Research Institute. Over 70 photographs, many of which are in that exhibition, as well as the Streets of Los Angeles archive that Ed Ruscha collected and put together. Thousands of materials still being worked through at the Research Institute. You can find all sorts of information about that on getty.edu as well. So our three panelists tonight do not need a lot of introduction. The theme is Los Angeles. We wanted to bring together three people who are really masters of their own media, pictures, written and spoken word, and people who, in their work, show a great fondness for Los Angeles. Madeleine Brand, who, following 13 years at National Public Radio and KPCC, joined KCET's SoCal Connected as a special correspondent. And of course, we all know that her Madeleine Brand show at KPCC won numerous awards, including a 2012 Golden Mike. Steve Lopez, columnist at the LA Times, author of several books, including The Soloist, which you know became a motion picture. Like Ed Ruscha, Lopez regularly takes us onto the streets of Los Angeles, focusing our attention on the mundane, notable, and often aggravating features of our dear city, but always with a discernible affection for the city he calls home. And then, of course, Ed Ruscha, who has lived in Los Angeles since 1956, never really considering himself a, quote, Los Angeles artist. His work nonetheless stands among the most recognizable depictions of our city and its culture. His work is equally at home in the lobby out there as it is at the White House, and we think it's most appropriate to celebrate his contributions up here on top of the hill, looking out over the great city of Los Angeles. So welcome, all three of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for braving the crazy traffic out there. It's so nice to be here with you. Thank you. So, speaking of traffic, that looks so peaceful. There is no traffic up there in that world. Ed, let's talk a little bit about this. This is Hollywood Boulevard, I believe.
Yeah, it's Hollywood Boulevard.
And the top was taken in those photos were taken
1973, something like that. And then the bottom one is like 2005, something like that. I can't be exact.
And you took...
That's a span of time, so it happened, and that's it. Yeah, you see some changes and some not-so changes.
Yeah, I know.
It's a mixture of everything.
It looks a little brighter now.
Maybe brighter. Well, let's say it's in color. Today it's color. I mean, that's the way I see the whole city. I saw the black and white side of it, and now it seems to be in color.
Yeah. Funny how that happens. But what else? I mean, so you are for better or for worse. I know that you had some issues with this early on in your career, but now I'm wondering if you embrace this identity of the quintessential Los Angeles artist.
Well, I basically have the same menu that I've always had, and that is just kind of, I don't know, it's so absurd and it's so paradoxical. I can't summarize it, but I'm just doing basically the same thing that I did when I was 15 years old.
And that is?
I've learned a little and I've forgotten a lot, and that seems to work. When I came from Oklahoma, it was like I had to unlearn everything that I had been taught because this city and this new culture for me sort of demanded that I unlearn everything I learned. And so that was good. So I was able to start all over again.
And you were really young. You were what,
well,
19?
I was like out of high school, 18 years old.
So you came from Oklahoma. Did you think, I have a choice, I can go east or west? And you chose west?
I did think about a half a second for that. And New York seemed to be so cold. And Chicago was okay, or Kansas City. I was thinking about an art school. And Los Angeles, I had been here before with my parents on a vacation. And it had a kind of glamour that I liked. And I liked the palm trees. That was a
Which
plus.
also are not native to Los Angeles.
Well, most of them aren't. So, there's a few, I think, that are native, but most, you're right, are not. So that sort of got me out of the past and into the present, or today, the future.
But did you think at the time, this was in the mid-50s, 1956, I think,
Yeah.
that LA was the future, that this was the city to go to make your future, and that the whole country was leaning towards the West in that way?
Well, I remember one thing is I read something. I knew I was going to Los Angeles, and I had a friend that we took my old 1950 Ford and drove cross country to LA, and I had a copy of the Look magazine, which was something like September 1956, and there was an article in there about the explosive growth of Los Angeles, and it had some really flashy photos of LA, and there was something in there that said that Los Angeles was growing in population at a rate of 1,000 people a day. So if 500 people a day, let's say, left and went back home, then 1,500 people came here to live here. But anyway, it was 1,000 people a day. Now, there might be a statistic, I would like to know that, what the statistic is today about people who come here.
I'm going to put Steve on the spot.
Yes.
Do you have that statistic
I don't
in
have
your
that.
pocket?
I forgot
Somebody
that.
would have it somewhere.
Somewhere at a great newspaper.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, I mean, you're both outsiders, I suppose. I don't know if you consider yourselves outsiders.
Just because you were born here.
I know. I get to be the insider.
You can now call us
I get to
outsiders.
be the insider.
We've been here a while. I am an outsider, and I came here. It's 12 years that 12 years ago I came here to start writing this column, and I came in part because it was a job prospect that terrified me. And it terrified me because I had written columns in cities that were more knowable, in Oakland and in San Jose. I was working at Time magazine in New York, and I had this chance to write for the LA Times. And I called my boss. Norm Pearlstein was the editor at Time. And he said, well, you can't do that. He said, you can't write a column in LA, a local column. And I said, why not? And he said, get on a plane, and I'm going to be in Key West this weekend. Meet me there, and I'll explain to you why this would be the worst move of your career. So I got on a plane. I went to Key West. His wife had a house there, and we spent a lovely weekend. And he said, first of all, he said, here are some of the challenges. First of all, half the people are not from there,
and the other half don't speak English. If you can find, he said, if you can find 6 people who believe that anything the mayor does in a day has any impact on their lives, take the job. Take the job. And, I guess the turnout in the primary election proves him right.
He's right about that, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, everybody who voted in the primary seems to be here tonight. That's it. We hope that you vote again in the general. But I like the idea that it scared the hell out of me. It's like, how do you begin to get your arms around it? And I knew that it was, LA is a flirt. It winks, and you want to get to know it, and you can never embrace it. And I still feel that way after 12 years. I feel like it's, in many ways, unknowable.
Yeah, and this is the topic of tonight's discussion for sure. And it's interesting that just this week, I don't know if any of you saw these 2 pieces in the New York Review of Books and the New Yorker, both have articles about Los Angeles, and they're both written as if the authors had never stepped foot in the city. And it just seems to me that, raises several questions, but that, first of all, why are New Yorkers so obsessed with Los Angeles? And why can't they get it right? And why do they keep talking about apocalypse and freeways? But
let me ask you a question. I read your article about a week ago about you adopting a dog. Now, is Ginger still a part of your family? I'm really curious. Is Ginger still on board?
The follow-up is on Sunday, and you're going to have to wait.
Oh, okay.
Look, now more than ever, we need to sell papers. And if I give away the... Listen, since you all decided to show up, I wrote on Sunday about I don't always write about the most important thing in town, as Ed has just reminded me. We have a daughter, my wife who's here, we have a daughter who's 9, and she's been asking for 5 years for a dog. And we said, the time's not right. Finally, we went and got a rescue dog and got this pup home. And it was terrified of us. And somebody in the family, who shall remain nameless, let the dog off the leash.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking there would be a column in it if the dog ran away. So we lost the dog twice in 3 days. It fell in the swimming pool on another day. And we took it back to the rescue agency. Now, writing about this in LA, there's going to be a follow-up column, because I could write about, who's better, Eric Garcetti, Wendy Gruhl, and get, maybe 20 or 30 emails. I wrote about my rescue dog, and I'm going through thousands of emails, about half of which are from animal communicators, volunteering to talk to Ginger about what the problem is.
Yeah.
The answer, Ed, is that we took Ginger back.
Oh.
And I got so much hate mail. People said, you're irresponsible and have no right to own a living creature. Now, when I have to confess in part 2 that I took the dog back, who knows what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
But before coming here today, I swear to you, I was on the phone with an animal communicator.
so maybe those New Yorker writers were right. I don't know. No.
Well.
But you and I were talking about this earlier, about how do you, because your job is what LA Times columnist, big title, not a specific title. How do you capture the city in your column, or what is your strategy to? It's
hard. It's I find it challenging, and I love my job because of that. And I feel like, when I went to see Ed's exhibit here, when I got here a little bit earlier this afternoon, and I found new inspiration looking at his work, and one thing I love about his work is that he's out there trying to figure it out. And we have these wonderful photographs, whether it's Sunset or Hollywood Boulevard. And I'll sometimes just stare at the scene and wonder, how is this so powerful, and what does it say? And look for the story. And I'm certainly not doing the same kind of thing that Ed is, and I'm not an artist. But you look for things that are somehow, that say something about LA. When I was on my way here tonight, I passed that lone tree on Cahuenga Peak. Do you know the tree I'm talking about? Or are you those people who have never been east of Robertson? Let me see if I can bring up all the lines that might be in the New Yorker article. But anyhow, I saw this tree, and I was reminded as I saw the tree up there. First of all, it's just stark. It's beautiful. It's lonely. It's one tree.
Where is it in Cahuenga?
If you go to the Hollywood sign, if you walk up to the Hollywood sign, and then continue going west, you've got to jump a fence.
Yeah.
That's private property. It's where Howard Hughes was going to build that bungalow for Ginger Rogers up there. And we almost lost it to investors from Chicago, but it's been preserved. If you keep going west, you get to this tree, and if you walk to that tree, here's this lonely tree in this beautiful place, and there's a bag hanging from the tree, and you open it, and there are notebooks. And people have gone up there to write messages. It's to lost loves, it's hopes and dreams. And there's something about how it's such a lonely place, and LA can be so lonely. And yet it's a place where these dreams reside in this bag in a notebook up there. And I thought, that's LA. And when I wrote that column, I tried, without saying all of those things, to just sort of evoke that, a place, a time, and that iconic lone tree.
Much like this one.
Yeah, we should have a photo of that tree. I'm sorry. It's not that tree.
It's not this
that
one,
tree.
but it looks a lot like it. But what you just said really reminds me of what these photographs of some Los Angeles apartments evoke as well. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about those photos and if they are meant to evoke a kind of loneliness.
I was more like capturing them rather than using their spirit to evoke anything. So they were kind of like sometimes sad little buildings in my estimation, and I didn't aspire to live in a place like this necessarily, but I've lived in all kinds of places. And but they had a kind of innocence about them that sort of they just sort of said, photograph me, please.
And were you just driving around Los Angeles and all of a sudden you saw the Fontainebleau?
Well, actually, I searched out these places, and I have done a lot of driving in Los Angeles since I've been here, and mostly central LA, like anywhere from downtown through Echo Park, Silver Lake, Hollywood, west to Santa Monica, and Culver City is part of it. But I've never spent much time like south or in the valley. Well, I used to live in the valley for a while, and I love the valley. But anyway, I got to sort of investigate these little streets in LA, and they began to talk to me somehow. And that's where these things came from. That one, I think, is actually out in the valley, in Encino.
The Telstar. Were you also drawn by their titles, their names?
Titles? That was part of the interest, too. I mean, there are all kinds of funny names that they used to put on their... they were kind of Sputnik inspired, and they had titles relative to the 50s and 60s, and Polynesian titles, that sort of thing, which they're actually moved away from today. I think they don't really title buildings anymore, maybe, but they've always done that.
Yeah.
Throughout history. I mean, you can find old apartment houses in downtown LA that are usually named after some person. They wouldn't name it any bizarre name like Kon-Tiki.
It does give it a little more glamour.
Yeah, but I don't think they even build buildings like this anymore.
Yeah. Oh, well.
That one might still be standing, I don't know.
That
one is still on Fountain Avenue, and the name is gone.
Oh, it's not the
They took it
Fontainebleau
down.
anymore?
No.
That's too bad.
No,
I
that
think
building
that's
stands, so.
That's what makes it. But
North side of the street.
But do you ever wonder when you're taking those photographs what's going on inside, or is it just the exterior and the aesthetics
All
of
exterior, yeah. I was not interested in the least of anything more in depth. what kind of people lived there or anything didn't really interest me. It was all that physical facade was what got me.
In fact, you seem to have made sure there are no people in these at all.
I was striving for that. I'm not sure I succeeded in every case, but there might be someone sitting in a car or doing something like that.
But why were you so assiduous in not having people in your photographs, or even in your paintings?
You know, in art school, I went through a series of classes with life drawing, and that was hammered into me from early on, that every piece of art, no matter what you call it, I mean, even that bottle of water, even that table, everything comes out of the human body, and so you must learn that. And I wrestled with that for a while, and never could make anything out of it. And so I've never really drawn the human figure or in my art, or been even that interested in it. And so I think that it was to have humans in here in any way, comical or otherwise, or just walking down the street, was a distraction. Mm-hmm. And so I centered on these, although you'll find there might be a person or two in these pictures. I don't know. It was accidental.
But as we're taught in journalism school or on the streets, that without people you don't really have a story. It's not interesting without people in it.
Well, sometimes, I think that there was a time I lived in one 2-year stint in Santa Monica, and now we live in Silver Lake. And I did write once without talking to anybody. I was sitting on my deck in Silver Lake, and there is a view of the Hollywood sign. And it was one of those spectacular sunsets. And I thought, I'm going to write a column that attempts to write about the difference in that sunset experience near the water and closer to the Hollywood sign and the mountains. And so it was a column that was just about the place and about the different things that you see, and the jasmine in the spring, and the way from my deck the sun marches toward the Griffith Observatory as it sets each night and then reverses itself later in the season and goes back. And I thought, now that's an LA column, and you don't want people in the way of that thing either. It's here's the picture, and so sometimes it works without anybody at all.
The Hollywood sign, that was a good prompt, because I wanted to talk to you about why you are so obsessed with the Hollywood sign, and you've painted it I don't know how many times.
Well, when I first saw it, it was very sparkly, and I was a little runny-nosed kid from Oklahoma, and it was a startling thing to see this sign up there, and then I eventually settled on Western Avenue, and outside my window was that sign. I used it as a weather indicator, and so if I could read that sign, and when I was there in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, I could judge, and those were the days when the smog was really bad here. So you came to LA after the really serious smog was here.
Yeah.
You could look out towards the hills and the Hollywood sign. You would not see a thing except haze, smog haze. And so that was an indicator for me, and I kept, every day I'd look out there and see, well, how clear is the air going to be today? And someday, maybe 3, 4, 5 days out of the year, it was very clean air. That was about it. And then after that, it was always different. So I looked at it enough times that I thought, well, maybe I should put this, hammer it in marble or something, make this thing, sort of do this thing and make a work of art. So that's where it originated from.
But
it was a weather sign.
But you kept coming back to it.
And, well, I revisited it, yeah, but not for any length of time. I see it as it's an icon, sure. And I've seen it, I've been up to the sign when it was in a very poor condition, and it was half of the sign was down. Actually, this was in late 70s, and so I think in maybe the early 90s, maybe that a committee got together and rebuilt the whole thing. So now it's good and sturdy.
But do you, I mean, a lot of people who have written about your work have looked at that and said, well, that's, you're using that as a metaphor. And do you see it that way? Or?
Well, actually everything's a metaphor for something else. And certainly Hollywood is, and I mean, I've even thought of it as a possible verb, you know, using it as a verb where you could Hollywood something, you know. And people do it all the time without actually saying, well, this is, I'm going to Hollywoodize this. But, and just the name itself, I don't know. It's, sometimes I'm wondering whether I paint a picture of the word or with the word. I'm still undecided. So I'm crawling along on my fingernails.
Of the word or with the word? With?
I don't know whether I'm painting a painting of that word or with that word.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One of these days I might have the answer, but maybe I'm not looking that hard.
But you've been associated with Hollywood, at least in
Well,
your youth.
I had my studio there for
I
few
mean,
decades.
Hollywood, capital H, Hollywood, stars. So,
It's, yeah, I mean,
movies.
that was part of the twinkle of the place when I first saw this, you know, came here and I saw, you know, the movie industry seemed to have I mean, they were rooted here, and all of that. It was, and then Walt Disney was here, and everything was in Southern California. It was a kind of a dazzling place, you know, and so I responded to the whole mess, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm trying to unravel it, and that's the way I spend my time.
And you've been here for more than 50 years, and you're still not
Could be.
figuring
I'm
it out.
not counting, but yeah.
Did you decide when you moved out here to write about Los Angeles that you would not cover Hollywood?
Yeah, because, you know, it's, I mean, I'm a street columnist, an old-fashioned street columnist. And, you know, we have people covering Hollywood, and I wanted to steer clear and do my own thing. I wanted to do what I didn't think was being done. And that means just following your instincts and your interests. It also means in LA, because you can get so overwhelmed by, I mean, my biggest challenge each time that I go into work is not, okay, what the hell do I write about? It's, man, I've got 20 ideas. Which do I choose? Which can I execute the best in the short amount of time that I have? And I think when you were asking about the New Yorker, I think that when you don't live here, you try to describe the whole big thing. And then when you get here and you realize there is no description that fits everything. Mm-hmm. And I went from thinking, instead of the panorama, take a snapshot. Just focus, keep your focus a little narrower. And that works better for me, instead of trying to explain LA to people who live here or to the rest of the world. Just tell a story, a snapshot, that when you have a good day, although it's a small story, there are universal things in it. And something that says something about LA.
And I think, Ed, that's also what you do. And literally taking a snapshot, as we see here.
Yeah, I guess we're both out on the street, aren't we?
Yeah.
In funny ways. Yeah.
But we haven't bumped into each other.
No, we haven't. This city's too big. I'm going back to that 1,000 people a day net gain. I really want to find out what that figure is today. I'd be really curious, and I get kind of depressed when I see the change in the city, and I hate change of any kind, so that puts me in another category. I don't know, but I see what they're going to be doing they're lifting the limits on skyscrapers here, and we're going to start seeing probably less sun and more shadows. Everybody's going to be in shadow. Like Hollywood particularly, the community of Hollywood with
The Millennium Project.
Millennium Project, yeah.
If you're going to call it the Millennium Project, you might as well go sky high.
Yeah, is that going to make our life better? I don't know. Do you know much about it?
Well, I do know that the idea is, I remember having this conversation with Eric Garcetti about the Hollywood plan, and okay, why do we need more skyscrapers in the city? He said, well, let me ask you something. If you take this great big giant block, what would you rather have on it? 3 or 4 12-story buildings and no open space, or one narrow, slim 50-story building and everything around it, the rest of the block is a park. And the building happens to be near transit. And you might not even have to leave the block to work. So it's that kind of thinking, but it also is part of the Manhattanization. So it's very controversial. And there are people who like it and like the idea behind it, and other people who say just what you said, and people who live up in those hills there and their view is going to be blocked.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, why not just a park? That's not commercially viable, I guess, is it?
We could use one, I'll tell you.
A lot has been said about, a lot of hand-wringing recently about transportation and how we need to get out of our cars and have public transportation and bike. And you seem to be still enamored with the car. And I'm wondering if what is your relationship with the car and getting around Los Angeles?
Well, I'm not a champion for cars particularly, but I know that people have to move around, and that's a niche industry in itself, is to try to figure out how to move people around. And I get aggravated when I think about traffic and trying to cross the city and on these so-called synchronized lights, that are not synchronized. They're synchronized against us, I think is the answer. But, I think we lost something. We lost something really important when we gave up the streetcar, the electric streetcar, because that was so efficient. I mean, that could have been expanded upon, but we were, after the war, we were really into oil consumption and automobiles, and so the streetcars left, and maybe it's how do we get on streetcars?
I'm just wondering if you have this ambivalent relationship with the car, because so much of your work is about the car, whether it's the gas stations or it's every building on the Sunset Strip, which you took those photos from a car. I mean, you didn't take them on foot. You didn't walk the Sunset Strip.
I guess so, and so I'm really, in my work, in that respect, I'm dependent on the automobile. And I used to be interested in custom cars and that whole aesthetic, that was really born during the war or after the war by people who came back from the war and there's nothing to do but let's customize this car, and made really interesting, some great vehicles, funny looking to some, but very innovative to others. And you don't see so much of that today, people customizing cars. You don't see that. I mean, it's not, I know there are people out there doing it.
I see it on the east side and around Elysian Park.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, Chicano cars, lowrider cars that's a sort of an idea that is sometimes underappreciated. I mean, that's really a cultural thing of LA. It's one of the dominant cultural things of LA. And people overlook that. And yet I think it's, you don't see so much of that today. you can search it out and find it, I guess, but where's it all gone?
I want to read some of the words that are on some of your paintings. Hell, heaven, an invasion of privacy, 11, it's only vanishing cream, some pretty eyes and some electric bills, when out for cigarettes. Honey, I twisted through more damn traffic to get here. Ace, no end to the things made out of human talk. Mysteries, the end. I mean, that's just, there's so many more. And I guess I'm wondering about your choice of words and whether you choose them to say something or you choose them because they're aesthetically pleasing to you, or both, or none.
They mean something to me at the time I did them, I guess, and they have some attraction to me. Sometimes I get the idea. Sometimes I hear it on a radio or pick it up in a newspaper, or sometimes it just dawns on me, and they just come from all directions, and they capture me at a certain moment when I want to make it official by making a drawing or a painting of it. So.
And what is it about some of these words? I wonder if you could give an example of why a certain phrase attracted you.
Well, I don't, if I think, actually, my favorite word is the, T-H-E. And I can't tell you why, but it might have something to do with the shape of the letters. And the fact that it, taken by itself, is not too instructive or educational or anything, but it's a sort of a bridge. It's a helper word, that is that we could almost do without, but I don't know why the location of that word in our minds seems to attract me somehow, and that's my favorite word.
The.
You didn't ask me that question, though, did you? What my favorite word was?
No, but I'm happy to know it now.
Okay. Yeah.
You must use the word the or the all in every column, at least once.
From now on, I'm going to try to get it in there a little bit more. Well, when I have time and on a good day, what I'll do is write a sentence and get it just right, and then realize it needs to be rewritten 10 times. And then you get that to where you want it and go on to the second one, and there's an effort to get that one just right. And the moment that you do, you realize it doesn't go with the last one or the one you got planned.
Yeah.
And so it's language, and I had a writing coach once who said, you write with your ears, and you're not doing that. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you're not listening to the cadence here. And the other thing that he said to me was, this was when I was just starting to write columns. And he said, you don't have much of a voice. And I said, well, all right, how do I get one? He said, well, now that's the trick, isn't it? What he first said was, okay, if you take the columnists you like and you cut them out of the paper and you cut their little heads and bylines off so that there was no identifier, and you mix them up and you picked one up and read, the first paragraph, well, that's Maureen Dowd.
Yeah.
You know that instantly, or you know that that's Sandy Banks. It's because they have voice. And he said, you don't have voice. You're a bad imitation of the people that you thought you wanted to be, like whether it's Mike Royko or Jimmy Breslin. And he taught me. I said, so what do you do? And he said, you have to figure out why you're doing this. It's about your mission, your purpose. And until you figure that out, who you are and why you do this, you're not gonna be distinctive. You're gonna keep writing bad imitations of other columnists.
When did you figure that out?
I'm still working on that. I mean, that's a forever project. Yeah.
Ed, do you feel the same way about your work, your voice? Or do you think you pretty much have nailed it by now?
Not knowing it, I think if I knew what I was doing, I might die of suffocation for lack of ventilation or something. I've never, I'm kind of consistent about this, is I don't really know my direction. And so all I do is just, I report to work every day. And I make paintings, drawings, use photographs, make art. And so that seems to be the everyday routine. But mastering it it's never mastered. It's never completely consumed and grabbed and kept. But you know, somehow you keep doing it and you learn certain things from it. That was evasive, wasn't it?
It was really evasive.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to tell me one thing you have learned and be specific.
You know, I brought something I was going to read from, this was something that, let's see if I have this, if I brought it. Well, maybe I didn't bring it. No, it was
Now you're going to have to answer my question.
I'm going to have to answer the question, aren't I? Yeah, it looks like I don't have it, but it was a thing by Christopher Isherwood about Los Angeles. God, it was great. I'm sorry. Can't read it. But everybody here probably has their computer. You could look it up.
Google
We
it.
could look it up. Christopher Isherwood, 1966. He
Oh.
had something to say about Los Angeles, and I'm sorry I can't read it. But
And it's as apt.
yeah,
now
it was
as
about all
was
these
then?
people who come to Los Angeles, and then a lot of the souls go back home. That was the gist of it.
The bodies stay and the souls leave. Do you ever regret not making your art career in New York?
I was tempted to do that, and it was always too expensive or too cold for me, and I liked warmer weather, and that seemed to me to keep me here. And and it was a good place to get lost, and it seemed to me like New York had certainly a vitality to it. It was the center of the art world, still is, you know, but not enough to make me want to, you know, hug it and live it. It would be tough. It'd be tough. I love to visit that place, but I wouldn't want to live there.
But do you think you suffered at all professionally for not being there?
Yeah, because you know, especially in the 1960s, it was New York was the only place, and so it was tougher for L.A. artists to make an inroad.
Mm-hmm. And what about now? What is it like now, do you think,
It's
for LA
much
artists?
more expanded and exploded, and they've got so many artists living here today all over the place. They used to live in Venice and Echo Park, and now they live everywhere. I mean, they live all over the place. And there's so many more artists today and so many more museums, many more museums now. When I say many, I mean there's, back in the old days there, in the 50s, 60s, there was like one museum, the LA County Museum, in Exposition Park. And
Which you set on fire.
no, well, that was the newer version. It's on Wilshire Boulevard. Yeah. And then there was the Pasadena Art Museum. Now we have the Hammer, and we have MoCA, and we have all these institutions that are, you know, really forward-thinking places, and a lot of galleries, and it's enough to make your head swim.
I find LA very exciting right now in the art world. Do you agree?
I guess, you know, I kind of love this place and I hate it at the same time, and but I have mood swings. Like one day I'll hate it, and the next day, but it's where I live, so I better.
Do you consider
Stick it out.
yourself an Angelino now?
I guess I can't deny that. Can't deny that. Yeah.
I mean, would you? I just want to close with this, and I'm going to ask you both this. I mean, do you consider Los Angeles your inspiration, your muse, if you will? Is it something that figures into your daily creativity in a way that you have to have it to create?
You want to take that one?
Like I say, it's overwhelming, and I mean, it helps that I'm not always trying to figure out the essence of it. I mean, you sometimes just write off of the news, and it's got nothing to do with trying to capture the place. I've been lucky since I got here. We had, we had an action hero running for governor when I got here. I mean, come on, there's plenty of material there, and that actually says something about the place. I still get down on my knees every night and thank Cardinal Mahoney for all of the material that he served up and continues to serve up. There was the March to War, and so there are always the bigger things, and then in between you're looking for, okay, what's happening on this corner, what's happening on that corner, and looking for things that are somewhat iconic. Right now I was talking to you about tinkering with a novel that's set in the late 60s and early 70s, and although I've got all of those big things happening in the time that I've been here to write about, I'm thinking about the time when you were, the cool school, and a little bit later, you've got the Watts riots, you've got the Century City demonstrations, you've got the Bobby Kennedy assassination, you've got the SLA shootout, you've got the Tate LaBianca Manson stuff. Yeah. And as I'm reading
good stuff.
But as I'm reading through
good
it,
inspiration.
I'm wondering, and if you don't mind my asking, was there a lot of conversation among you and your colleagues about all of that stuff, and what you did with it as artists?
Yeah. Well, I remember one thing you just made me click here on my friend Ken Price, who's a sculptor, no longer with us. During the Watts riots, he said, well, we could be down there buying eggs, and bang, it hits us. We're innocent. We love everybody, and we're trying to understand the whole thing about why the Watts riots happen and how we can stay away from the trouble. But, all those issues, boy, I mean, they mount up, and there's sure lots of stories there.
Yeah. Yeah, but did you think consciously of that? Did you think, okay, what does this say, and what do I do with my camera? What goes down on the canvas?
I didn't get particularly inspired to make art out of any particular event that was a noteworthy event. I mean, popular noteworthy event didn't inspire me to do anything, and I was off in some other ether somewhere. But it's sure fun to read about, and historically, there's some good stuff there, especially the corruption in LA in the 1920s through the 50s, and Mickey Cohen included, and those kind of stories are really juicy, aren't they? They're great stories.
Terrific stories. But there's no corruption today.
No.
No, squeaky clean. But you do get at this issue that I think that, for me, when I see your paintings, The Hollywood Sign, and some of your paintings, makes me think about how Los Angeles is so self-conscious because it is portrayed in such a larger way on screen, in books, in TV, in popular culture. And I really think that part of your art is about getting at that tension between the reality of Los Angeles and how we perceive it, and how the perception of it affects how we perceive it literally.
Wow. Yeah, it's sort of a lava flow. That's the way I feel like it. And the lava picks up all these things, broken glass, all these rocks and things, and that's sort of like where all my thinking rolls out of that, and so even my own mind is corrupted on occasion, and but it is this. I mean, living in this city is a fruitful sort of thing, and I'm not sure where I can't point to any one particular thing and say that's what this is all about LA, but it's a combination of all those things.
Well, I want to thank you so much. This has been really interesting. Thank you both. Ed Ruscha, Steve Lopez.